I was standing in my living room, barefoot and half awake, holding a mug of coffee when it happened. 5 words from my son shattered my entire world. "You're not my dad, Brandon is." I froze, just stood there like I had forgotten how to breathe. My boy, Tyler, 17, fist clenched, eyes blazing with anger, spat those words at me like venom. And behind him, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed and a smug little grin, was my wife, or the woman I used to call my wife, Emily. I looked at him, then her. "What did you just say?" Tyler stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You heard me. Brandon raised me. You just paid the bills." My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking as I slowly reached into my back pocket and pulled out the folded DNA results I had gotten the day before. I looked at Tyler, then at Emily. "You're not my biological son," I said quietly. Emily didn't blink, didn't cry. Hell, she didn't even flinch. She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "So what?" she said flatly. "You've been his dad for 17 years. You gonna cry about it now, Jake?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But I couldn't move. "You knew?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. She let out that fake little laugh she always used when she was lying. "Of course I knew. Brandon and I never really stopped seeing each other after the wedding. You just didn't notice." I felt the ground shift under me. Tyler was looking at me like I was the villain here. "So what now?" he asked. "You gonna help pay for Brandon's cancer treatment, or not?" My head snapped toward him. "Let me get this straight. You want me to pay the hospital bills for the guy who slept with my wife and fathered the kid I've been raising for nearly 2 decades? Emily nodded. "It's the least you could do. You've got a solid job. Brandon doesn't." And that, right there, was the moment something inside me broke. I didn't yell. I didn't break things. I smiled, because I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I was gone. No note. No goodbyes. I didn't take my clothes. I didn't even take the keys to the Dodge Charger I spent 3 years restoring. Emily could keep it all. She already took the most important thing, 17 years of my life. But I wasn't running. I was getting ready. 3 hours later, I was sitting across from the one man I knew could help me make sense of the chaos. My lawyer, Doug Millstone. Guy had glasses thicker than a brick and a mind sharper than a straight razor. I dropped the DNA test on his desk. Doug looked it over. "You want full legal disassociation?" I stared straight at him. I want to destroy her. Legally. Financially. And if there's any way to drag her little boyfriend through hell with her, I want that too. Doug nodded slowly. "What about the kid?" I clenched my jaw. "He's not my kid." I didn't stick around for the moral lecture. I just told him to call me when the paperwork was ready. That night, I didn't stay in a hotel. I didn't stay with a friend. I slept in my car because I needed to feel something real. Cold leather seats. No pillow. No comfort. Just me and the truth echoing in my head like a war drum. Emily moaning in our bed while Brandon took my place. Tyler looking me dead in the eye and calling someone else dad. And then my mother. Yeah, we'll get to her. Next morning, I stopped by my mom's place to grab some papers. She sat me down and said something I'll never forget. "You need to let this go, Jake," she said, sipping her tea like it was just another day. I frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Emily told me about your diagnosis. That you're terminal. You should spend your last months finding peace." My stomach turned. "What diagnosis?" She looked surprised. "She said you had a few months left. That's why she let Brandon step in. So Tyler would have someone strong when you're gone." I stood up, shaking. "I'm not dying, Mom." She tried to walk it back. Said Emily told her I knew, that I made peace with it. Said it was all for Tyler. I stared at her, the betrayal hitting harder than any punch I'd ever taken. "I'm not dying," I said again. "But after hearing this, maybe I should be. Because the people closest to me? They're already dead." I left without another word. My own mother, manipulated like a puppet. That was it. No more talking. No more crying. Time for action. I became a ghost. Motel rooms under different names. A second private investigator digging into Brandon's life. What he found was gold. Turns out Brandon, the so-called real dad, was up to his neck in debt. Owed back taxes. Had a sealed assault case on record. I made a few calls. IRS showed up at his job the next week. And Brandon? He was fired before lunchtime. But that was just step one. Emily still had no idea that I emptied our joint savings account. Every dime she thought she was spending? Gone. Frozen. The cherry on top? I left just enough in there to book her a first-class flight to nowhere. Miami. She thought it was a girls' retreat. Some luxury getaway she won on the radio. When she landed, there was no car, no hotel, just a sign with her name and a packet of divorce papers. She called me 23 times that day. I watched every voicemail come in, each one more desperate than the last. Jake, where's the hotel? Jake, my card got declined. Jake, you're gonna pay for this. She had no idea that the phone she was using, the one I bought her for our anniversary, was tracking her every move. And I watched her pace the sidewalk outside that airport like a lost puppy. But this wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. While she was stranded, I was watching Brandon. He had a routine Tuesday nights poker with his buddies. Except one night, he didn't go to poker. He went to a house I didn't recognize. Young woman, blonde, pregnant-looking belly, wearing his hoodie, kissed him like it was nothing new. Brandon, the homewrecker, was cheating on Emily. It was perfect. I sent her the photos anonymously. Let her imagination do the rest. 10 minutes later, she lost it. You piece of trash. How long has this been going on? I gave up everything for you. She called his boss. Spilled everything. His assault record. His tax mess. The shady deals. Brandon got canned. By that night, he was out on the street. And I was just getting started. I had tipped them off, anonymously of course. Mentioned the late rent, the shady habits, and sure enough, Brandon got the boot. I watched from a distance as he stood outside his building, suitcase at his feet, shouting into his phone like it owed him an apology. I had a good guess who was on the other end. Probably Emily, screaming back, panicking now that her real man was couch surfing. And Tyler? He had no idea yet. Not until he got home from school and found half the furniture gone, his mother back from her Miami mess crying on the couch, and a court document waiting for him on the kitchen table. Stamped in red, paternity fraud lawsuit. My final message to him was short. No anger, no yelling, just the truth. You said Brandon's your real dad? Good. Then go live with him. Oh wait, he's homeless. That night I found myself on a rooftop bar, whiskey in hand, staring out at the glowing city below. Everything looked calm, peaceful. If only they knew the war I'd just finished waging. And even after all that, I still wasn't at peace. Not really. Not yet. Because there was one person I still hadn't heard from, my mother. The same woman who told me to forgive. Who took Emily's side. Who believed I was dying without ever asking if it was true. So, I went to see her. Not for closure. For war. I parked a block away from her place. Not to sneak around, just to calm myself down. I needed to walk off the rage before it swallowed me whole. I rang the doorbell once. She opened the door in her usual pastel sweater, soft smile plastered on like makeup. Jake, she said, like she hadn't buried a knife in my back. Thank God. I've been hoping you'd come by. I stepped inside. Didn't say a word. The house smelled like it always did, lemon cleaner and warm bread. But now it felt like a crime scene. She followed me into the kitchen. I know you're hurt, but don't, I said, sharper than I meant to. She blinked. Sweetheart. Don't call me that, I snapped. I'm not your sweetheart. I'm the idiot son who spent 17 years raising another man's child while you nodded along and said nothing. She tried to respond. I didn't know. Not at first, I interrupted. But you knew later. When Emily told you I was dying. When she fed you that lie and you swallowed it whole. You believed her without ever checking if I was okay. She sat down like her legs gave out. She said you didn't want to talk about it. That you were in denial. That Tyler needed someone strong. So your plan was what? Help her ease into life with another man while I just fade into the background and die quietly? I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. I laughed once. Bitter. Cold. That's the thing about betrayal, Mom. It doesn't come from strangers. It comes from people who hug you while twisting the knife. She was crying now. Good. At least one of us still had feelings left to bleed. You know what stings the most? I asked. That I thought you were the one person who'd always have my back. She wiped her eyes. I didn't know what to do. One phone call, I snapped. That's all it would have taken. Hey Jake, are you really sick? One question. You couldn't even do that. She was crying, she whispered. She said she didn't want to lose you, but she had to think of Tyler's future. I stood up. She didn't lose me. She never had me. And you? You lost me the moment you picked her version of reality over the truth. She gasped for air. As I turned toward the door, she said something that stopped me cold. She was already pregnant when you married her. I froze. What did you say? She didn't know who the father was. She told me it was probably you, but maybe Brandon, or someone else. She said it didn't matter because you were safe. You'd stay. You'd love the baby no matter what. She used me as cover, I whispered. I was her safety net. The fallback guy. Her plan B with a paycheck. Mom nodded slowly. And you let her. You helped her lie to me. She didn't deny it. I'll send you a copy of the court filing, I said as I reached the door. You're suing her? I'm suing all of them. And with that, I walked out. Not with forgiveness. Not with grief. With finality. I had buried the last piece of my old life. Now it was time for the next phase. Tyler's graduation party. No, I wasn't invited. Obviously. But I was going to show up anyway. Not to celebrate. To detonate. It was hosted at Emily's sister's mansion. White tents, gold balloons, wine glasses clinking like it was a movie set. I parked 2 blocks away, hopped the back fence, and walked in like I owned the place. Sharp black suit. Sunglasses. Smile like a blade. The music was loud, and the lies were louder. Emily looked stunning, all fake grace and champagne charm. Brandon wasn't there, probably still jobless, crashing on someone's couch. And Tyler? He was glowing. The golden boy. Taking pictures with people who didn't even know what a mess this family really was. I waited until the toast. Emily raised the microphone, voice syrupy sweet. Thank you all for being here to celebrate our amazing son. He's heading to UCLA this fall. I stepped forward. Except he's not my son. Gasps. Heads turned. Emily froze. The microphone trembled in her hand. Go on, I said, voice steady. Tell them. Or should I? Jake, she hissed, eyes like daggers. What are you doing? Oh, just bringing a little truth to the party, I said louder now. Since it's built on lies, figured I'd toss in something real. Dead silence. 17 years ago, this woman married me. Told me she loved me. Said she was carrying my child. Turns out the baby wasn't mine. Never was. Emily stormed forward. You're ruining his day. No. I'm giving him something you never did. The truth. I looked right at Tyler. You want to call Brandon your dad? Go ahead. But just know, he was cheating on your mom the whole time. Got a 22-year-old pregnant last year. That's why he disappeared. Tyler's face dropped. Emily lunged, trying to grab the mic. But I pulled out my phone and held it high. Audio clips. Texts. DNA results. This isn't slander. This is evidence. A woman in the crowd whispered, Is this real? It's real, I said. I worked 2 jobs, paid the bills, raised a kid who wasn't mine while she played house with Brandon in our bed. And the cherry on top? They told my own mother I was dying so she'd go along with it. The crowd turned. And for once, they weren't looking at me with pity. They were looking at her with disgust. She faked my death to cover an affair. And that was just the beginning. I said, Make space for a man who can't even hold down a job. Those were my last words at Tyler's graduation party before he shoved his way through the crowd and disappeared. Emily's sister shouted, Get out, Jake. I turned to her. Why? Because I shattered the fantasy? Because the mask slipped, and now everyone sees the mess underneath. Security started to move in, but I lifted my hands. I'm done, I said. But Tyler, if you ever want to know what really happened, I'll send you everything. I loved you like my own, even when your mother made sure you hated me for it. And then I walked out. No shouting, no tears, just the truth, dropped like a brick in the middle of their little fairy tale. And for the first time in years, it was quiet behind me. The kind of silence that only shows up after a funeral. Because something did die that day. The lie. And I was the one who buried it. 3 days later, Tyler showed up at my door. He looked older, worn out, hoodie pulled up, eyes hollow, voice barely a whisper. You said you had proof, he muttered. I want to see it. I didn't speak. I just opened the door and let him in. We sat in silence. Not the kind that needs to be filled, but the kind that says too much on its own. Then I reached across the table and slid him a USB drive. It's all there, I said. DNA test. Phone recordings. Screenshots of Brandon cheating. Bank records. Even the letter your mom wrote to my mother about my fake illness. He stared at the flash drive like it might bite him. Why didn't you ever tell me? He asked. I looked at him. This boy who I taught to ride a bike, who I stayed up with when he had fevers, who I held when he broke his arm in 7th grade. You weren't ready, I said. And I was too afraid to lose you. He swallowed. So I'm not your kid. No, I said. But I was your father. Every single day. Until you told me I wasn't. He stared at the floor. Foot bouncing. I didn't know, he whispered. She always said you were cold. That Brandon understood her. That you didn't care. I didn't care? I leaned forward, fire barely held in my chest. I worked 70-hour weeks, paid for your braces, your soccer tournaments, your stupid prom tuxedo. I gave everything I had, and when I came home too tired to smile, she made me the villain. His voice cracked. I didn't know who to believe. You believed the best liar, I said. She's an artist with words. And you? You were just the audience. He rubbed his face. I'm sorry. Are you? I asked. Because when you stood in front of me and said Brandon was more of a dad, you said it without blinking. I was mad, he whispered. I thought you gave up on us. I laughed, cold and sharp. I didn't give up. I got thrown out. She let Brandon play house while you handed her the knife. He started crying, not loud, but real. Quiet tears running down a kid's face that never should have had to carry this kind of betrayal. What now? He asked. That's up to you, I said. You're almost 18. You can live with the truth or pretend none of it happened. He looked at the flash drive again, then picked it up. I didn't ask for this, he said. Neither did I answered. But here we are. He stood up, paused, then looked me in the eyes. Thank you, he said, for raising me, even when I didn't deserve it. I did not reply. He left, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something like peace. Not quite, but close enough. But I was not done. There was one more person hiding in the shadows, someone who helped make all of this possible. Emily's boss. The one who helped cover up her lies, move money around, even forge documents. And I had a plan for him. His name was Howard Keene, Senior Vice President at Wycox Financial. Were suits worth more than my truck? Slick, polished. The kind of man who treated ethics like a game of poker, play when convenient, cheat when needed. I spent 2 weeks gathering dirt, hired a hacker, and got help from one of Howard's former assistants. And what we found? Gold. Turns out, Howard had a side gig, a complicated web of fake companies and shady real estate investments. Guess who was listed as a silent partner on a bunch of them? Emily. She paid him in money, and in other ways I won't detail here. Let your imagination work. But the crown jewel? A recording. Howard, on tape, telling a colleague to hide documents that showed Emily had lied on her tax returns. She's clean on paper, he said. They'll never touch her. Oh yeah? Wanna bet? I took everything, every document, every offshore transaction, every forged signature, and sent it to 3 people. A journalist I knew from college, a contact at the Internal Revenue Service Fraud Division, and Howard's wife. I didn't post anything online. I didn't rant on Facebook. I let the truth do the screaming for me. 2 days later, it hit the news. Senior executive under investigation for fraud and laundering. Howard tried to spin it, called it political, said he was targeted. Then the audio leaked. Then the screenshots. And then, right there on the morning news, Emily. Her name, her face, frozen accounts, seized property, from yoga retreats and designer handbags to full-on financial scandal. And me? I sat at home, poured a glass of cheap bourbon, watched the storm play out like a movie I had waited years to see. She wasn't the innocent mom anymore. She was the headline. But even after all that, something still twisted in my chest. Something that burned every time I remembered how much I loved her once. That love had died, but the rot was still there. I needed to end it, properly. So I wrote her a letter. No insults. No threats. Just 13 words. You destroyed everything I was. So I became everything you're afraid of. I mailed it. No return address. Then I did what I should have done years ago. I changed my number, deleted every photo, threw my wedding ring into the river, and bought a one-way ticket out of town. Because this city? It wasn't mine anymore. Not the streets. Not the buildings. And sure as hell not the memories. They were ashes now. And I was finally free. I needed space. Real space. But before I vanished, there was one last thing I had to do. It was not about revenge. It was not about them. It was just for me. A quiet goodbye. A private funeral. Not for a person, but for the life I used to live. The sky was gray the morning I went to the cemetery. The kind of gray that smells like rain and old regrets. I stood alone beside a tall oak tree, next to a patch of unmarked grass. No headstone. No inscription. This wasn't anyone's grave, not officially. Just a piece of land I chose to bury the last pieces of the man I used to be. In my hands was a small wooden box. Nothing fancy. Inside were the last physical remnants of my old life. Emily's love letters, the Father's Day cards Tyler made when he was little, a photo of us at Disneyland pretending to be happy, and the wedding ring I had worn for 17 years. Bent, scratched, and rusted, just like the memories attached to it. I knelt down. No shovel, no gloves, just my own hands and a spade. I dug the hole myself. When it was deep enough, I paused. My fingers hovered over the lid. Part of me wanted to keep one thing, one reminder of what I thought we had. But then I remembered the smirk on her face the day she told me Brandon was the real father. The way she rolled her eyes like I was just a chapter in her story, one she'd outgrown. So I shut the box. And I buried it, pressed the dirt down with my palms, and whispered, "You don't get to stay in my head anymore." And that was it. Not peace, not joy, but space. Like something heavy had finally been lifted off my chest. Like the air inside me had room again. I stood up, wiped my hands clean, looked up at the sky. Still cloudy. But those clouds were moving. And so was I. Later that afternoon, I made one last stop, an old garage on the edge of town. A friend of mine ran it. Years ago, I helped his brother get out of a drunk driving mess. He owed me. Now, he handed me the keys to a restored '72 Chevy Impala. No paperwork, he said. No questions. Perfect, I replied. And I drove. West. Through towns I had never heard of. Past strangers I would never meet. Down roads with no signs. And mile by mile, something inside me shifted. Not everything, but enough. I stayed in roadside motels. Paid in cash. Got a new phone. Changed my name. Jake. The husband, the stepdad, the fool? He was gone. Now I was just a man. Scarred. A little lost. But building again. And if you're hearing this, if you're a man like I was, stuck in the wreckage of someone else's storm, here's what I need you to understand. She does not win. Not forever. Not when the lies crumble. Not when the mask falls and the world finally sees what you've known all along. She might steal your peace. She might drag your name through hell. She might even turn your own family against you. But there's one thing she can never touch. Your honor. That's yours. Emily thought I was weak because I did not scream when she cheated. Because I didn't smash the furniture or torch her closet. But real strength? It's not loud. It's in the quiet. It's choosing to walk away without turning back. It's taking all that pain and turning it into clarity. It's saying, you don't get to define me anymore. So if she lied to you, if she left you bleeding, do not just survive. Rebuild. Start again. Become someone unrecognizable to the person who tried to break you. Because the best revenge is living a life where she no longer exists. And I promise you, that day will come. It came for me. I'm not perfect. I am not healed. I still wake up some nights, fist clenched from dreams I cannot remember. But I am free. And sometimes, that is enough.